And we're live! Welcome to RockSim Live. I'm Tim Van Milligan. Hopefully everything is working. Everything seems a little slow today, but this is RockSim Live, and here is where we talk about RockSim, RockSim Pro, or the Launch Visualizer. I do have the live chat going on right now, so if you are watching or if you are just coming into the room, go ahead and type in your questions. Please say hello and where you're watching from if you want to be recognized. I'd love to recognize you. Yeah, we got Carlos K. from Marietta, Georgia. He's a regular. Brian Sensolowski. He says, it's Papa and Levi from South Bend, Indiana. Hello, Tim. Oh, hello. And then Guppy Guy is here from Boise. So, and there's more people here, but they haven't said hello yet. And if you're watching on replay, we'd love to have you in-house. We're here every Friday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time or 4 p.m. on the East Coast. Yeah, it's an odd time, but that was the time that I have available. So that's kind of how this got chosen. We may change it in the future. But it's hard to say who has time available, to watch. But we are here to answer your questions about RockSim, so go ahead and fire them off. While I do that, let me get some preliminary stuff going here. Let me show you my screen. So if you're unfamiliar with Apogee and RockSim, you'll come to the Apogee website. ApogeeRockets.com is our website. And when you get here, there'll be a scrolling banner, and one of the panels will say RockSim 11 on it. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the order page. And also on the order page, you'll find, if you scroll down just a little bit, right here, quick information, you see there's a download a free 30-day trial to test it out yourself. And then here are the system requirements. And there's upgrade prices available. So if you are on version 10, version 9, version 8, whatever, you can upgrade at a reduced price right there. Otherwise, the current price is $50, which we actually lowered the price earlier this year, or was it late last year? But yeah, so we did that just to see if we could get more users. And the jury is still out on that. So what else we got here? So if you go to the home page, click here on the home button, come to there, and if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the free RockSim training every week. That's what we're doing right now. We're training on RockSim, and if you click on the image, it will take you to the archive page. We are on episode 204, so our archives is a little bit behind, but this gives you, the topic that we talked about and the timestamp in the YouTube video, so you can just jump to it if that's the topic you're interested in. Also, if you go here to How-To and Guides at the top, and then come down here to Software, click on Software, and it will again show you that free tutorial where you can purchase it. Then there's more background information on RockSim, which is what is RockSim, and specific features. There's a frequently asked questions, things that you can do with RockSim, the system requirements, and the version history are all in this column. And then over here is the RockSim video tutorials, which are kind of like if you're just starting out from scratch and you've never done RockSim before, we'd recommend these video tutorials. Like number one, getting started by opening an existing design and running a simple simulation. Because once you run a simulation and see all the cool information you get, you're going to want to run a lot of them. So that's the preliminary, man. We got done with that. Usually it takes me until 10 after to get to there. We have Rick DeFosses from New Hampshire. Cool. Carlos K has the first question. He says, could RockSim find views display GPS coordinates. You must have them. Could RockSim Field Views display GPS coordinates? So he's talking actually about RockSim Pro. We have three versions of the software. RockSim is the original one. Then we added RockSim Pro. The difference is RockSim Pro is 6 degrees of freedom, where RockSim is only 3. So within 6 degrees of freedom, you can get a full 3-dimensional picture of the rocket and see it roll and twist and yaw. In RockSim, you can't do that. You can only do 3 degrees of freedom, which is up, down, which is one of them. Then you got crosswind is one of them. Not crosswind, with the wind. And then you have pitch, which is pitching into or with the wind. So those are the 3. So that's really just kind of like a 2D display. Once you get the other 3, then you got full 3D. And when you run a simulation, you get a full 3D effect. And I'll run a simulation here just quickly. So I'm going to open this design, the rising star. And here's, beginning your first simulation. So you open a design, you can see the rocket, and you can see it in 2D or 3D. So those are those buttons over here. When you're ready to launch, you go here to prepare for launch. Choose an engine, and you choose that one. It doesn't matter which one. These are all engines that are 24 millimeters. Click OK. Ooh, this is a rocket that's the engine is off center. And then we can launch it, and it ran the simulation. Only went 67 feet. Probably went unstable. But if you click this button right here, this is the launch visualizer for RockSim Pro. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a viewer window that's going to show us the full 3-dimensional image of the rocket. And we'll see the rocket. It's actually it's 4 dimensions. So you have the 3, dimensions, up, down, in and out, crosswind, plus you have the 4th dimension of time, because your rocket's going to travel through time. It's going to do the whole simulation. So it's loading the viewer right now, and it's got to go out to the internet and grab maps, because we're going to be launching in a full 3-dimensional space. And so you can see the colors are loading up. Right now we see the rocket on the pad. Down here we have this mini viewer, which is kind of like a like a standard view, because if you zoom out, and I'm just using my scroll wheel here to zoom out, you can see this rocket is in a field somewhere here, and we can see the full 3D, and then we can rotate it around. If I grab this right here, I can rotate it around, and see, now you can get lost. But if you ever get lost and you lose your rocket, come over here to this button, and we'll zoom back in, and you'll see the rocket sitting on the pad again. So this rocket has GPS coordinates, and Carlos's question is, what are these coordinates? Can't you display them in this screen? And the answer is yes, we could, but it costs money. Because it's a big change into the software to pick 3-dimensional coordinates. But we did do it in the launch visualizer. So this is the launch visualizer, but this is inside RockSim Pro. But the other launch visualizer is on the web, where it's a lot easier to do. So what we can do is open up a new browser window. Where's this window going to open? And then you go to rocksim.com. So this is what I do, Carlos, when I'm looking for the GPS coordinates. I go to rocksim.com. And then it's going to load our page. So this is the launch visualizers are being loaded on your web browser. So you don't need any software. You can do this right now as we're speaking. And so when you get here, it's still loading. I want to log in to my account. Because when you log in, you can create a free account. It doesn't cost anything to create an account. And it gives you a lot more information. So when you log in, I'll just log in my email address. You can log in also using Google, or you can log in using your Apogee account if you have an Apogee account. If you ever bought anything at Apogee, you have an account. So what I do is I come over here to the launch site. And now we're going to, this is kind of like the launch visualizer that I showed you before, but it's in a different window. And I'm going to display the 2D, which is mean I'm looking straight down at my launch site. And then you zoom out until you can kind of figure out where you are in the planet. You know, and say, you know, I think Carlos is somewhere over here near Atlanta. And I have these pins right here are launch clubs, where club launches. So this one is the SOAR at Mills Spring Academy. This one is Society of Tellus Amateur Rocketry. And this one right here, green, the red ones are the NAR, so National Association of Rocketry. Those are their clubs. The green ones are kind of like ones that other people outside of the clubs have said, here's where I launch. So this green one right here, it's kind of like right on the border. So I'm zooming in and it's reloading the maps. And you can see this is not a bad field. There's a lot of trees around it, but the one in the middle, it's okay. So here's how to get the coordinates. So you just double click. So I just double clicked and it puts a red dot there. And then once the dot is okay, that's going to be my launch pad. Then you say down here, confirm the launch site. And when you do that, it grabs the latitude, the longitude, and the altitude of that point above sea level. So this is 1,326 feet above sea level. And if I want to move my pad, see, check these numbers out here. If I move my pad over here and then hit confirm launch site, watch these numbers over here, they're going to change. Oops, I didn't confirm my launch site. I want my button right there, confirm site. Boom. And so they changed. And so what I do then is then I can take these numbers, do a copy, and then come over here to RockSim and say I wanted to add that one into RockSim. What I would do is I would go to prepare for launch, and the launch conditions table right here, if you click on that, this is where you enter your launch site. You can enter your altitude, and this is altitude above sea level, the landing zone altitude. So why are there two? Because your launch site might be different from your landing zone. Say you're launching from the top of a tall mountain and you expect it to land, I can't see my hands, down over here. So your landing zone, basically the landing zone tells RockSim Pro when to stop the simulation, because you're going to, normally you go up and you come back down and that's where it stops. But if your landing zone altitude is at a different altitude, they'll go up and then come down. So it's got a longer period in the air. So that's why there's two. Normally, if you're on a flat land, you just set them to both to the same number. And that's what I do. It's just, unless you're on the top of a tall mountain and you're going to be landing off the mountain, just both numbers to the same value. And then down here you have the latitude and the longitude. So if I go back here, it helps to have this window open. Okay, so I'm going to do a copy. So I got to highlight the number, copy it, come over here, and I am going to paste that right here. Come on, paste. Sometimes it wants to be funny. Come on. Copy. I need to move this one because this one's in the way. There we go. So now it's 34. So then I'm going to go back to the other one. I don't have both of them on the same screen. Let me move this one off to the screen over here. And so this one is the longitude. Copy. Highlight that. Paste it. Come on, pasty, pasty. Doesn't want to paste it. That means I haven't copied it. Computer is really acting really slow today. Still doesn't want to paste. You can always type it in. Minus, I'm going to type it in. I'm looking at the other screen. So it's at minus 84.26443665725. And then my altitude above sea level, I'm looking at this other screen over here, is 1,312 feet. And the other one, I'll do this one the same, 1312. And then you can give this launch site a name. I forget what the name of this site was. It was kind of like Dawson something. Dawsonville. Soar Dawsonville. And then you just click here, save this launch site, and it saves it to the database, and it tells you that it was successfully saved. You click OK. Then you hit your flight profile, and it's going to run another simulation. This time, it will be at that new location on the Earth. So the reason we can't display the latitude and longitude, it's possible, it's just expensive. And, you know, you could help out by ordering it. It's still loading. Man, my computer is running really slow today. Okay, let's look at it in 2D. My launch pad is below the Earth, which means that my altitude is not quite perfect. Okay, so previously, when we were in the launch visualizer, the launch pad was over here. Now we're launching from over here. Does it make a difference? Not for this rocket, because it's only in the air for about 3.6 seconds. This rocket's just it's like doing crash into the ground. Let's zoom in. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it's doing. Yeah, it's doing a flip. Whoa. Okay, so I'll let you watch that while I check out this. Okay. Ron's Rockets says, aloha. We launched 140 rockets on Wednesday with a local youth group. It was a marathon. I bet it was. That sounds like a lot of fun. Ron's Rocket says, are you getting more users which balance out the lower price? The answer, Ron, is probably no. Should have kept it at the same price. So we might have to go back. But we have big plans. We have big plans. Something different. Starko3 says, so if thrust to weight of 5-to-1 is used for 5-mile-an-hour winds max, then how do we calculate the thrust needed off the rod for 10 to 18 mile per hour winds to meet the thrust ratio. How do we get it at the launch site if needed? Okay, very, very good question. Okay, so I'm in the launch. So if you're at the launch site and you have internet available, like I said, you can use RockSim.com and do your simulations there. Let's see if it displays the, I don't think this displays the thrust to weight ratio, but there's something better than thrust to weight ratio. But people are stuck on thrust to weight ratio because it was the old school method of doing things. Okay, so right now on this simulation, I've got steady winds, and we're going to make it a 5 mile an hour wind. Click OK. And we got to throw a rocket motor in there. So choose motor. I'll put a C6. I think the rocket I'm using in this simulation is an Avion. Okay, so we choose the engine. And then we're going to launch. The launch button is down here. Click on launch. Simulate. And it's going to run the simulation. And it's going to show us what the trajectory looks like. So now this runs in the cloud. So it's faster than my computer is running right now, which is nice. So here's the rocket. Yeah, we're still at that other launch site. So then we launch it, which is down here. And this one's going to be in the air for 50 seconds. So the rocket's taking off, and you see the smoke coming out. The blue smoke means it's coasting. And as soon as we hit Apogee, there's the parachute. There's green dot. And now the rocket is coming down. Okay, and then it lands here in the field right there. Okay, so then we close this. This is what I wanted to see, because I am not sure if we display the thrust to weight ratio. So under column configuration, I am looking for thrust to weight ratio, and it's not here. Okay, so we don't display it in the launch visualizer online. Yeah, so how do you know if you've got enough thrust? So in the launch visualizer, we give you a visual indication. Let me open this back up in full screen. And then what I want to display, I want to go here to settings, click on settings, and I want to show the weathercocking cone, and I want to show the trajectory path. So this is like the path the rocket takes in the sky. And I'll click OK. So right here is the launch point. Here is the landing point. And what we're looking for here, you see this cone right here? We call this the weathercocking cone. And let me make it a little bit darker. So you see the weathercocking cone here? I'm going to change the opacity. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Okay, so now you can see it. And you can see that this is a cone. And what we want is this gives us an indication of, is the rocket going straight? If it's too windy, what's going to happen is your rocket will weathercock. It will tilt itself into the wind, and that's bad. Well, could be bad, because we want our rockets going up safest direction. And if the green dot right here, if you see a green dot, that means that the trajectory, the rocket stayed within this cone up until apogee. If the dot is on the outside of the cone, that means we're weathercocking too much. And to solve the weathercocking, you got a couple of choices. One of them is a higher thrust to weight ratio rocket, because when you're moving faster, you just don't have time to weathercock. And this kind of gets you to your question of, do I need more thrust when it's windy? And the answer is maybe. If you can keep your rocket in the weathercocking cone, you might not need to add more thrust. So if you had to add more thrust, how do you do it? So if you look at the rocket motor that's loaded, this one, the last simulation was the C65. The C tells us how big the gas tank is. And then the first number gives you how hard you're pushing down on the accelerator pedal. So higher thrust is going to be a bigger number. So right now we're using a C6, and the 6 stands for 6 newtons of average thrust. So it's a force, but we're using the metric system of newtons. So if you want higher thrust, you'd go here to the select the motor, choose an engine. So this time I'm looking for a number after the letter that's bigger than 6. If I'm using an Estes motor, that's about as big as you can get. If I use a Quest motor, I have an option of a C12 or C18. So this is higher thrust. I click OK. And then if I run another simulation and simulate, so now we're comparing that first simulation to the second one. So let me go here to trajectory view, and I'm going to run the simulation. So the rocket's taking off, it's going up through the cone. You can see, to me it looks straighter, which is what I would expect when I'm doing more thrust, because like I said, the slower you go, the more time is available for the rocket to weathercock. So this rocket went really straight, and that got a green dot, which means I'm inside the cone, and then the rocket will come down. Yeah, you can move the slider bar over here, and you can see where it's going to land. If I hit this button, then I can compare these last two simulations. So the C6, I went 789 feet. With the C18, went 934 feet. And there's 2 reasons that it went higher. The first one was it went straighter. So it didn't have time to carve into the wind. And then the second reason why this one went higher is because it actually has more gas in the tank. And you can't tell that number just by looking at the name of it, but you can tell by looking at the total impulse. So when you go to load an engine, look at this column right here, and this kind of tells you how big the gas tank is. And the bigger the number, the bigger the tank, the higher you're going to go typically. So the C6 has a total impulse of 8.8 Newton seconds, and the C18 has a total impulse of 9.8. So 8.8 versus 9.8. So that's kind of like, more than 10% more gas to burn. So that's the 2 reasons why it went higher. In RockSim, you can go to this column here, right-click on the column and say Organize Columns, and then you can display the thrust to weight ratio at launch guide departure. Click OK. This will tell you, where is it? Right here. Thrust to weight ratio at launch guide departure. So he's saying he's got a thrust to weight ratio of 1. In this case, we got a thrust to weight ratio of 11. So it's like twice as much. So I expect it to go straighter. Yeah, so I find that the weathercocking cone and looking at the trajectory is a better way of picking motors than using the thrust to weight ratio. It's more visual, so I can actually see it. In thrust to weight ratio, we're just have numbers floating around in our head, which makes it harder. So if I'd like to see it. So use that 3D launch visualizer and look at the weathercocking cone. Just go into the settings, display it so you can see it, and look for the green dot. If the dot is green, all is good. Travis Pullman says, I was in Colorado Springs last week. Sure wish you had the Invicta in stock. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Travis. We built them, was it yesterday? So they're back in stock today. But yeah, I'm sorry about that. We just got behind, and we are playing catch up. And yeah, so there's a bunch. Before this, I was looking at our stock report, and I was just looking at all the things that were just out of stock. And it's like we could get them on the shelf, but we have to build it first. You know, we have to stuff all the parts into the bag and put the labels on and everything. We've got all the parts. We just don't have the time to do everything all at once. Carlos K says, no, SOAR Mill Springs. I guess that was the launch site. Carlos K says, question 2. I let Apple upgrade my iMac Pro. Now RockSim 11 disappeared from my tray. Do I have to reinstall? Probably not. So if it was installed once, what you'll do on your Mac is, open up a browser, your Finder window like this, come down here to Applications, and then your applications, you'll scroll down through your list of applications. You'll find your RockSim folder, and I've got a lot of them because I got all the different versions. Then you find the application itself, and you'll see it says application right here. So this application, you'll just drag onto your dock and let it go. And it's already installed, so you shouldn't have to reinstall it. You should be good to go after an upgrade of the OS. It always stayed in the dock before. Yeah, I don't know why that did that, but just find the application, drag it down to your dock, and you should be good to go. Johan says, hi, I had an exploding Klima again. Sorry about that. We don't have the Klima motors here. I wish we did. Like I said, we were out of stock on a lot of things, and a lot of it was motors. And just having any motor would have been better than nothing. Carlos K says, I reinstalled while you were on the last question. All is well. Okay, so he did reinstall. Guppy Guy says, love RockSim. Do a lot of sims. Latest built was a BT60 dual deploy with 29 millimeter motors. Is that too much motor? Should I really go? Oh, should really go. Is that too much motor? Okay, so how do you figure out if you have too much motor? Let me change this design here. I want to move this fin motor mount is driving me nuts. So I need to go to the radial position and make it back to 0. And it puts it right back into the middle of the rock. And I'll say okay. Okay, so how much motor is too much? And this is a very good question, and it's really hard to answer. Because it depends on two things, and one of them is more important than the other. The first one is, what material is the rocket made out of? And that is important. But the second question is, how is the rocket constructed? That's a more important question. Because if you have through-the-wall fins, those are stronger than the same rocket with where they're just glued to the surface of the tube. Even though they're the same material, having through-the-wall fins, how it's put together is more important. So, assuming, so it's how, like, I can't answer that question on how you put your rocket together, because the skill of your own craftsmanship, this is where high skill pays off. This is why you should build a lot of rockets, because the more rockets you build, the better your skills are, the stronger they're going to be, because you learn this by doing. Now, if your rocket was made out of aluminum, like, you know, typical aerospace rockets are, and things are bolted together, then what material it's made out of is going to be more important, because at that point, it's not so important on how you put it together, because every rocket's going to be put together as strong as possible. And now it's like it goes back to what material it's made out of. So in RockSim, we don't have a solution, but we're going to add it into RockSim Pro. And this is, I'm using a beta version of RockSim Pro, so I think I can show you this. So this is not in the current version of RockSim Pro, but it's going to be very, very soon. So you go to, basically where the rocket breaks is almost always the fins are going to fail. So too much motor makes the rocket go very, very fast. The faster the rocket goes, the more drag, and drag is a force, so you have a push on those fins, and it wants to make those fins do funny things. And basically what happens is it causes the fin to flutter, which kind of like vibrates like this. So it's locked into the tube, but the tips of the fins out there in the air are flapping around. And at some point, it's not stiff enough to hold it, and then they snap. And then when they snap, it's like you got confetti going everywhere. And that's what we mean by too much motor for the rocket. If you get to that point of confetti, it's too much motor for the rocket. Or your skills need to be better at building. But if it just comes down to material, we're going to look at the fins. I'm going to double click on the fins, and in the fins under the General tab, and like I said, this will be a new feature that's not available yet. And so what we will have is a fin flutter speed right here. So using this material, balsa wood, and that in the shear modulus, this is a property of the material. And this is the hard part, is like, what's the shear modulus of whatever material you're using? And again, it depends on the material. And so the shear modulus is material dependent. And once you know the material and its shear modulus, RockSim will just automatically calculate the flutter speed. At what point will those fins start to flutter? And it's going to, like I said, it's going to depend on the material, but it also depends on the shape of the fin. So if you start, like right now, I got 226 miles or feet per second. If I change things, if I make my root cord 7 inches, hit tab, see now I went from 226 to 232. Just by making the fin longer, it made it stiffer, and so now the rocket can go higher. If I go back, you can see it goes back down to 226. So there's a lot of different variables. So now at this point, once you know the flutter speed, now then you got to go back to the rocket or your flight simulations. Let me run a new simulation. I'm going to choose an E22 with a 13-second delay, and they'll just launch it. And I'm looking at the maximum velocity right here. So I can't exceed 226. I'm in miles per hour. What is 226 in feet or in miles per hour? So I can just go back here, change this to miles per hour. Come on. 154 miles per hour. So when I go here to the flight simulations, if I exceed maximum velocity of 154, now I got too much motor for my rocket, because at this point there's a good chance that those fins are going to break off. So that's how you use it. But again, even if the number is lower, you could still break a fin if your construction quality is crap. If you don't have good glue joints, you don't have good fillets, if you got the grain direction in the wrong direction, all the things that are poor craftsmanship, you can break your fins at a lower speed. This assumes that everything is rock solid, and it's only looking at the material. At what point does the material start to flutter? Yeah. Ron's Rockets. If you increase the price, you could offer a 50% special for 1 month out of the year to push sales. Yeah, everybody likes sales. What I'm planning on doing, I'll tell you what I'm planning, is we want to promote RockSim Pro. And so my plan is, if you spend a certain threshold of money on the Apogee website, say you buy a rocket motor, like everybody buys rocket motors. You got to buy a rocket motor if you're flying rockets. You might as well buy it from us. If you buy that, and rocket motors can get expensive, and they'll meet that minimum threshold. So if you meet that minimum threshold, we're going to give you a free month of RockSim Pro. So essentially, it's free, but you got to buy your rocket motors from us. How do you like that deal? Is that worth it? Let me know. Will that be a good deal? Let's say the price was $30. What is like a $30 rocket motor? Let's go. Let's open up a new window. And if I go back to the Apogee website, and if I go here to shop, and if I go to rocket motors, and I go to Aerotech motors, and I look at let's go 29 millimeter motors. Okay, so if I buy a 2-pack of E24s, I've hit my threshold of $30. And now I get a free month of RockSim Pro. Is that a good value? Let me know, because if it's not, I might have to change things. I have to rethink this. I'm thinking out loud, but I need your support. So let me know in the comments. So put your comments. Is a $30 purchase from Apogee to get a free month? And basically, and you can keep doing it. You can just do it every month. So in January, you buy your $30 motor. In February, you buy a $30 motor. In March, you buy a $30 motor. And you just keep getting a free month. You just tack it on. And if you don't need RockSim that month, you don't buy anything from Apogee. You might skip until June and say, oh, it's time for another launch. I'll go buy some rocket motors and get a free month of RockSim Pro. Let me know. Johan says, we can't even get Estes motors in the Netherlands anymore. So why can't you get Estes motors in the Netherlands, Johan? Let me know. I'm interested in knowing. Stark says, thanks for covering that for me. The RSO has stated several times that I need more thrust, yet I explained that the RockSim numbers indicated it has enough thrust. Most don't understand RockSim though. I know. That's why we have the thrust to weight ratio here. You know, he wants 5 to 1. You can say, okay, with this one, I got 10. It's bigger than 5, so it works. David from Michigan here. Better late than never. Yeah, it's better late than never. Where have you been, David? Marcel says he's from Parker, Colorado, and he's here. Wheelox World says, great idea on the RockSim Pro. Now I got to get a job. Well, you need motors to fly rockets. You know, our selling point for RockSim and RockSim Pro previously was, look how much money you're going to save not having to buy motors. Carlos says, what if I got impulse credits for buying motors, not time? Impulse credit. Well, if you have credits on the Apogee website, how do you get credits on the Apogee website? Well, one is you could buy a gift certificate, you know, or somebody can buy you a gift certificate and send them to you. And that's going to give you credits. And every credit is worth $1. So that's one way to get credits. Another way is getting a refund for some reason. And, you know, we like to just refund the money back to your account. And most people don't mind this because they're going to spend the money with us eventually. And so that it's in your account. The third way, let me do a different screen so you can see my face. That one. The third way of getting credits is through our frequent flyer program. A frequent flyer program is if you buy 7 times from Apogee Components and each order is greater than $50. So you bought, and a lot of people do this all the time. And then we term you as a VIR, very important Rocketeer. Let me go back to the desktop here. So if you're on the Apogee website and you go to, is it About? Yes. You go to How To and Guides and come down here to About, and then you go to the Frequent Flyer Program. And this explains it. So we have all these different levels. So every order you make from Apogee moves you up one level, as long as it's $50 or more. So your first order, you know, you buy 2 packs of motors and a rocket kit. You know, now you're at that level, but you've moved up into the frequent flyer program. And then every order, we give you a free gift, and it shows you what's coming as your free gift. Once we cut down to the 7th order, basically, we've run out of gifts, of physical things. So what we did was say, okay, we're going to give you points. And so then you get points. So every $10 that you spend with us gives you 1 point. And, well, you'll get points for every dollar you spend. But when you go to redeem them, each point is worth 10 cents. So it's like you need 10 points to get $1 worth of credit. And then you can spend those points any way you want. And so it's theoretically possible if you're a very important Rocketeer. We call the people that have done 7 orders very important Rocketeers, because these are our best customers, because they keep coming back again and again and again. So we treat them special. Everybody gets the same level of service, but our very important Rocketeers get a level above. One, they get those reward points, what we call them. And And so you can redeem those reward points. It's kind of like getting a 10% discount on all your orders. So it pays to shop at Apogee. And there are people that collect a lot of points. Thank you. Thank you. We do appreciate it. And you could spend those points. You could buy a subscription to RockSim. And RockSim Pro is subscription, where RockSim is just a one-time fee. RockSim Pro has to be a subscription because we have to pay for the maps that we get from Google. So every month I get a bill from Google for everybody that's been on RockSim Pro that's been running simulations. Google sends me a bill, and because of that, I have to do it as a subscription because I can't cover everybody with a one-time fee for their entire life. So that's why it's a subscription. Otherwise, it used to be, before we did the maps of the world, it used to be a one-time fee, but now it has to be a subscription. So it's right now RockSim Pro is $30 a month, but essentially, if you buy, this is coming in the future. We're still working on the details, still thinking through it. But if you spend $30 on other things, you get a free month of subscription. It's essentially free. Guppy says, I like the motor RockSim deal. Will it include rockets? Yeah, it will be any amount. You could spend it any way you want. It doesn't have to be on motors. You could buy kits. You can buy books. You can buy T-shirts. Anything. It just has to be spent on our website. Ron's Rocket says, I would buy a pack of F-67s every month if shipping was reasonable. Yeah, we don't control shipping, unfortunately. The only way Amazon can get such low shipping costs is they control shipping. They have their own fleet. They have their own fleet of trucks. And they need millions and millions of orders to be able to afford all those trucks. We don't get millions of orders. That would be millions of orders in our 2 lifetimes. So we can't, so we have to use FedEx, UPS, and the postal system. And we are charged their rates, so that's what we charge our customers. We don't make any money on shipping. If like I said, one of the ways to get rewards points from us is refunds. And one of the things that we refund a lot is overage on shipping fees. So if you buy from us and we're able to ship it cheaper than our website estimates, which is a lot, then we refund you back, and then you can spend those rewards points. Terry Wheelock says, I want a free pizza as a reward. Well, sorry, we're not a delivery pizza company. Yeah, Ron's Rocket says, many websites assign points for each purchase, which is what we do for our VIR customers, our very important Rocketeers. Then you can accumulate enough points for every month. So essentially, right now, it's going to be a screaming deal, because if we did it that way, you'd have to spend $300 worth of merchandise, and that would give you enough points for 1 month of RockSim Pro right now. But I'm gonna make it basically 1/10 that. Carlos K says the VIR is totally worth it, and well-shipped rockets are worth paying shipping. All my stuff arrives intact for over a decade. Well, thank you, Ron. You get what you pay for. When you come to Apogee, we we put a lot of effort into making sure that the rockets get there in one piece. So even though we don't control the gorillas on the truck that throw your boxes around, we put everything in the box gently with enough padding that hopefully it will get there. Now we do see a lot of times where, you know, they'll take a box that has tubes in it, which is really light, and then they'll put into their truck, somebody else is shipping an anvil, and they'll put it on our box. The box can't take it. I mean, that's just too much weight. And that happens, and basically that's what insurance is for. So when you purchase, you know, a few cents more to get insurance is worth it, because then we can reship it without any questions. Wheelock says, what is the best rocket for the 4th of July? The best one, they're all great. How do you pick the best one? I don't know how to pick the best one. That's just too hard. They're all the best one. I guess the best one is one you get back so you can fly it again. But even then, it's pretty easy to do. I know a lot of you are going to be flying on the 4th of July. That's going to be great because Friday, 4th of July it's on a Friday. And our club has a launch on the first Saturday, which will be the 5th of July. So I'm just going to wait one more day so I can fly on our club's field, which is a lot bigger. My chances of getting the rocket back are a lot greater. So, yeah, but the 5th of July, it's a good time to do rockets that are, I don't know, more spectacular, you know, more aerial excitement. I'm thinking of like maybe rockets like staging rockets that stage, or strap-on boosters that come off like a firework. That would be cool. Gliders that zoom around. Helicopters that spin. We've got spinning parachutes. That would be cool. Anything aerial excitement. Carlos says an Aspire on an he says F9, but it's an F10. Yeah, that's an 8-second burn. That will go really high. It's almost 3 o'clock and my voice is starting to go. So I think I'll call it a little bit, 2 minutes early today. Last week we went over like 10 minutes late. So I'll call it 2 minutes early so I can rest my voice. Let's see, next week, next Friday is the 4th of July. So we will not be here on the 4th of July. So we'll skip the 4th of July, and then would that be the 11th? The 11th of July should be the next Friday. And that's when we'll be back. So thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope you got your money's worth. And if you didn't, sorry. Yeah, come to the Apogee website. We can still ship rockets. If you order right now, it's not going to ship out until Monday. Getting there in time for the 4th of July, that's really iffy. For those of you that are in Colorado or maybe Utah, Kansas, Texas, it might get there because those are relatively close states. Yeah, so have a great holiday, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. And let me give you a countdown here. So in 5, 4, 3,